Alright, today we're going to talk about returning serves. At a similar skill level, I can read the spin correctly about 60 to 80% of the time. This means you won't be able to read every single serve. You must read the spin, whether it's topspin or backspin, the instant the ball makes its first bounce on the table. Essentially, your decision should be made the moment you hear that first bounce. If you haven't read the spin by then, stop trying to guess. For any serve you can't read, your default should be to brush the ball. Focus on controlling the spin and power to minimize errors. If you can't read it and just guess, you have a 50% chance of making a mistake. For professional players, improving and insisting on reading the spin is mandatory. However, due to physical condition or lack of practice, we sometimes can't instantly read the opponent's spin. Therefore, my advice is to handle all long serves you can't read by brushing the ball. This will prevent unforced errors. Use about 50 to 60% of your power when you brush. My concern is that if you misjudge the spin, your return direction will be wrong, causing you to be deceived by the spin. So, it's better to have a universal method. A gentle loop is a safe way to handle any type of spin without making a big mistake. When you apply friction by brushing, you can neutralize any spin. For example, against a hook serve with topspin, if I try to push, the ball will fly off the table. Against a hook serve with backspin, if I try to hit it flat, the ball will go into the net. However, if I use a brushing motion on all serves, regardless of topspin or backspin, I can return them successfully. If you can't read a topspin serve and instinctively push it, the ball will pop up or go long. So, a better approach is to use one method, a light, brushing contact. That's all. This is a neutral return. The two key points are, a thin brush and light power. Use 50 to 60% power to execute this shot. As long as your placement is good, to their backhand or middle, they won't be able to counterloop with high quality, and you can enter a rally. Some say the opponent's serve is extremely spinny. Let's demonstrate with a heavy side backspin serve. This serve is very spinny. Listen, try this at home. The more relaxed your wrist is, the easier it is to loop the ball up. The more you force it, the more likely you are to make a mistake. Be gentle and soft. Even against a fast, long serve, which tends to pop up if you push it, this method works. See? This is the universal formula for returning serves. However, if you can read the spin, you can attack a topspin serve with quality or return a backspin serve with a quality push. The main problem for amateur players is inconsistent judgment, so this is your best option. I believe this method is far better than guessing blindly and facing a 50% error rate. This is absolutely one of the best ways to receive serve. Because in amateur play, serves are often illegal, no toss, not enough power, making the motion impossible to read. For instance, you can't read a serve like that, and you can't ask your opponent to toss the ball legally. So, does everyone understand what a thin brush is? The forehand requires a very high level of friction control for both backspin and topspin because it involves footwork, so don't use this method on the forehand side. This technique is only for the backhand side. Watch me demonstrate two shots, and you'll understand. Between the first and second shot, which one was the thin brush? The second one was. The feeling of a thin brush is a very closed racket angle, making a grazing contact. A normal brush involves hitting through the ball more, whereas a thin brush is pure grazing. You can think of a high arc spinny loop as a thin brush. The feeling is about catching the ball, not driving it forward. You need to use this thin brushing method to handle the ball, don't hit through it too much. It should feel like a high arc loop, but the difference is that a true high arc loop requires you to sink the ball deep into the rubber. With this technique, you just want to thinly graze the ball to grip it. Some shots have friction but still go forward fast. A thin brush allows you to hold the ball on your racket. You can still keep the trajectory low. This is what it feels like to grip the ball. To put it simply, the universal formula for serve return is friction. And within that, for maximum consistency, the technique is a thin graze or thin brush. I'm not using less force. Instead, I'm using more brushing action to wrap the ball, converting my power into spin. At the moment of contact, that squeeze, I might exert 80% effort, but it translates into a 60% speed ball with heavy spin. It doesn't mean I'm only using 60% of my power. Let me show you. The first ball is easy for her to block. Now watch the second one. Why does her block go off the table? What's the difference? It's because I have a final squeeze of the racket at contact. I apply maximum force right at this point, which is why the ball is so spinny. The spin comes from that final acceleration and wrist snap after a relaxed backswing. You must bite the ball at the end. It's the same for your serve return. No matter what serve she gives me, I have a slight pause and that final squeeze at contact. This technique allows you to neutralize all types of spin. However, if the ball is very fast and kicks forward, like a fast side spin topspin serve, this technique might be too slow. If you can't even read that serve, we need to work on your anticipation. Now, let's talk about short forehand returns. Against a very spinny serve, like a reverse pendulum, a simple push will often go into the net. You can flick this type of ball. You can also flick a short side spin topspin serve. Think about a penhold player's block. If you serve short, they can always flick it, whether it's backspin or topspin. So, let's use the penhold principle. A penhold block is a forward motion, so we'll use a forward motion too. His block uses a vertical racket face, not a closed one. Shakehand players tend to close the racket angle out of habit, so you must keep your racket face vertical. Just imitate the motion of a penhold push block. If you try to loop this ball with your backhand, it's going to feel really heavy and hard to lift. A standard backspin serve can be returned with a roll flick, but my followers say they can't execute it. If you can't do the flick, don't force it. Let's use the simplest, most fundamental method. This inspiration actually comes from my father's serve return. My dad is a penholder, and when he forehand flicks, he never really lifts the ball up. He just pushes forward like this. He always just pushes forward, using his forearm and upper arm as one unit in a forward motion. His backhand is the same, he always pushes you with this motion. No matter how much spin you put on the ball, he can push it back. Normally, we push backspin and flick topspin. When you can't read the spin, you might push and the ball pops up. Or you try to open the racket face and miss due to the spin. So, follow what I said, keep the blade vertical, avoid folding your forearm, and just drive straight through. Target their backhand. This serve was backspin. A topspin serve is even easier to push back. Everyone, give this a try. It's definitely much better than pushing the ball too high or into the net, and it's easier to adjust. Just like a penholder, a purely vertical racket face, push from back to front, stay close to the ball. Don't use your wrist, just push through it. You can even add some pace. Through all my coaching, I've discovered a key point. For amateur players, the simplest method is the most effective. It's too difficult for an amateur to instantly read the spin and make the correct adjustment. You should all try this method. For long balls to your backhand corner, use the brushing method I mentioned earlier. But this doesn't work for long balls to the forehand. And this push block technique doesn't work for short balls to the backhand. A penholder can just block it, but a shakehand player can't. You should use a side swipe instead.